I think quality-wise, it's basically prohibitive to not go Unreal Engine 5 because that is basically the only tech right now that is like showing off the textures and the possibilities of your fashion.
The one distinguishing factor between Unity and Unreal Engine was always on the developer side.
Whenever we are actually looking at where is our projects that are going to be deployed, most of the times is going to be on Unity.
And if you're creating something that people are going to enjoy, you want people to see, you need to get it on platforms that people are able to use. So yes, you can have the most beautiful, like pristine, haute couture, like in Unreal Engine 5, but who is going to go see it? Who is going to be able to experience it? Yes, I guess other fashion creators, but if you want to get it out to the public, you're going to need to use these quote unquote, lesser platforms. Or
those who are listening, for example, might not even understand what the hell is Unity and Unreal and what the differences. So if anyone speakers in a minute explain what is Unreal and what is Unity and the key difference between the two.
Yeah, I could give a really brief description. These are the engines that power a lot of the game technology and these virtual worlds that everyone is envisioning. It needs a core foundation, the core base code, right, that renders environments on a device. These are the two primary leading platforms that developers can use to build these, worlds that go beyond our imagination. And I think it's just it will be very curious here in the near future, how Unity and Unreal, will continue to either dominate or, have some competition of other, platforms that will allow developers to build these, virtual worlds and game technologies.
Hi, in this video, we'll be able to listen to some of the guests which we invite to our weekly Mr. Metaverse discussion. Metaverse Video Week. We have already discussed in these events 3 months ago, Metaverse Fashion Week. First, we discussed how the previous one went. Then we were discussing how the this year Fashion Week was going. We should have 2 discussions on that. You can find still the recordings on our YouTube. In the podcast section, and this time, and then during the discussion, we basically said that it's better for them. We kind of spoke a bit about Metaverse Beauty Week, and that it's hard to have 2 events in the same time. So there's some photos to show. So the place is interesting, especially in spatial. And Dennis, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this beauty week, and also hear your thoughts on the fashion in the metaverse, and in general, what's your take on the Unity fashion, and then we can go from there.
So yeah, we actually had a discussion about fashion in the metaverse, in general, and then very specifically because last week I was I had this discussion with a potential client, and basically I can say up front, most projects that go into fashion and really take it seriously, there's really no discussion at all about that you actually have to go into Unreal Engine 5, because that is basically the only tech right now that is showing off the textures and the possibilities of your fashion in the sense that basically the designers would like to see. I'm not saying you cannot have a fashion metaverse in anything else, but that is everybody I've spoken to, that is basically the consensus. So I'm really curious, why people do it in Unity. I know their reasons. I've talked to a lot of people about why. Specifically, one case, it's people are afraid because Unreal Engine and Apple kind of have this legal stuff going on. There's bad blood between the two, and now people think, okay, we have to go to Unity because Apple headsets or the Vision Pro will not be able to feature Unreal Engine 5. So yeah, my 2 cents to that. And I think quality-wise, it's basically prohibitive to not go Unreal Engine 5 because you cannot show the kind of texture in the garments that you would want to show.
I see. Interesting. But also another reason is the costs, right? So creating the space in Unreal is much more expensive than Unity.
I mean, I would think creating the space is basically uh, is comparable because you would still have to pay the dev and the artists and everything, to create the space. I think per minute cost, that is what you're talking about. That is something else. So per minute cost is yeah, it ranges from, or per hour cost, let's say hourly cost, ranges from $1 to like some people even charge $10. So I think a lot of people just like charge too much. But still, even if it's $1, a lot of companies are afraid to go that route. But then again, you cannot be like at the forefront or at the tipping spear of a new technology if you don't want to spend that kind of money. So it's always kind of like where do you want to make want to make sacrifices? And I talked to some artists and some designers, and like of course they don't want to make sacrifices in quality, right? And then the fashion line, they need to earn money, so yeah, so they kind of need to find ways how to gate the experience, or like how to not make everyone spend like hours and hours like in the metaverse that costs them money without buying something. So yeah, really tough right now.
I'm curious to hear the other thoughts in the audience. Michael, what's your take? You have created a couple of great spaces using Unity, right? So what's your take about Unity and Unreal, and what's the use case for fashion?
Well, I mean, in this case, if we think about Unreal and Unity, I'm not too concerned in which is going to be like the end product, if it's going to be in Unity or Unreal, to be honest. As in, I do know that Unreal has way more potential than Unity, but at the same time, whenever we are actually looking at where is our projects are going to be deployed, most of the times is going to be on Unity, as in there's a lot of metaverse spaces or metaverse platforms, let's say it platforms, that actually require Unity. So in my case, it's all about where the client will actually want that space. In terms of quality, I can see a bit more on Unreal, to be honest, but I just adapted my work in a way that either if it's on Unity or Unreal, I will work towards the graphics. So there will be a lot of back and forth between us, decent architecture, exporting to the Unity developer or to the Unreal developer, seeing the result there, and taking it back again to our softwares that we use. In this case, it's SketchUp and Blender, and retune a bit of the materials or the lights considering the end results. So whenever you do a space, it's not just in one direction. Is you do the 3D, you choose the materials, and then you send to Unreal or to Unity. You always go back and forward, and fine tune the end result. So being Unity or Unreal, for me, to be honest, is just the same amount of work, and it just depends on the client.
And if anyone from the speakers would like to answer the question, whether it's more in a Unity platforms than Unreal, and do you see the logic there?
Yeah, for us specifically, we build in Unity because of the ability to plug into the software developer kits in Web3. So programmatically, Unity is more friendly for our devs in order to support this growth in Web3, right? And if you're unfamiliar with how really Web3 will kind of take hold into the metaverse, it will essentially allow for the metaverse to become an actual distribution center of products, goods, and services, much like what you would get in the real world. And there's lots of interesting vernacular surrounding that, but I think Unity does a really good job at allowing us to move, with scale in mind. If we're working with a project that has a very unique marketing activation in mind, Unity is a great model for scalability in sustaining thousands of attendees and users simultaneously to all experience what could effectively be an online convention or an event, which is specifically what we focus on at Inverse. However, with Unreal, you have this hyper realistic, very strong detail of the kinds of art renderings that are very enjoyable, but the accessibility to that foundationally, right? When you look at all the devices that live in every household here in the U.S. and abroad, they're limited mostly to a mobile device. Gaming consoles are very prevalent within the United States, but within the rest of the world, you're limited to LAN centers and mobile phones. In the U.S., yes, while there might be a good amount of home desktop and laptops, and maybe there's a few headsets, just at this stage there's not enough hardware to sustain the kind of scaling that is required in order to make the early stages of the metaverse more accessible, to make it so that there's less friction to get involved. There's very much a use case for both worlds, for Unity and also for Unreal. It's very dependent upon who's your target audience, and then being able to isolate exactly what it is that call to action is when you're asking somebody to interact with whatever whatever it is that you're offering, and how you plan to capture some data surrounding that. I mean, that's how we are able to iterate on this, is what kind of feedback can we collect from those users so that our next activation can continue to um, further drive engagement and be sticky. We want them to come back and experience the next activation. And that's really how we're designing this, is by specific call to actions. And Unity does a better job at this stage to satisfy the needs of the Web3 community that has really latched on to the metaverse as the future of distribution for them.
All right. Thanks, Peter, for the answer. If anyone would like to continue on that, feel free to raise your hand, come on stage, and share your thoughts.
Hi, I am doing wonderful. I'm so glad you mentioned Metaverse Beauty Week. I have been entrenched in it. So, hi, if you guys don't know me, I'm Cece. I'm a Metaverse influencer. So, I am the user and the promoter, I guess you could say, for all of the products that you guys are building for me. So, thank you. I appreciate you. I would not be here without builders, first of all. But I really love this conversation about Unity versus Unreal Engine 5. And I'd like to share a few of my thoughts on that as your sort of, typical end user. And, I guess you could say curator of, spaces that are being built. I've seen amazing Unreal Engine 5 spaces, but they are not what I would consider metaverse. They're sort of like a closed systems. And I really loved what one speaker said. I think it was you, Michael, that it was like a very specific sort of experience that a company wanted, and they wanted to have that exclusivity. But yeah, I have a very I would call it a very beefy, computer setup. And even using that, I was limited in some of my experiences in Unreal Engine 5 sort of worlds. Whereas Unity is, like you said, a lot of people can use it. I can go into Unity on my mobile phone in spatial. Like Andrew knows, I'm a spatial maxi. I absolutely love it. I will talk about it all day. But I really wanted to kind of stretch the conversation a little bit and talk about the amazing AR features that are now being used in fashion, and the whole cross-platform, getting people into the metaverse using AR. I think is underutilized at this time. Metaverse Beauty Week did a really beautiful job. One of the creators there created amazing fashion nails that are in AR. They are in Unity and also Decentraland, so in Blender. And you could purchase those. I think DressX did it. And you have all three of those places that you can wear this asset. And for me, if you're going to be creating fashion, if you're creating something that people are going to enjoy, you want people to see, you need to get it on platforms that people are able to use. So yes, you can have the most beautiful, like pristine, haute couture, like in Unreal Engine 5, but who is going to go see it? Who is going to be able to experience it? Yes, I guess other fashion creators, but if you want to get it out to the public, you're going to need to use these quote unquote, lesser platforms or these lesser sort of tools.
So if none of the speakers would like to answer to or add anything to this topic, we'll continue to topic number 2.
I would like to add something,
Sure.
if I may, Andre.
Yeah.
I'm not a developer, just to say that. Just from a, let's say, research perspective, and having talked to various founders of metaverse platforms, the one distinguishing factor between Unity and Unreal Engine was always on the developer side, you have much more people understanding and being capable of using Unity than Unreal Engine. I don't know if that's still true. Maybe some others know it better. And the time to market, like how fast do you want to go out with your fully built metaverse product? I think Unity is much allows you to be much faster in regards to that at the moment. However, I also see that in the future, when we reach a certain point with all these metaverse platforms, when they've established, when the market share is much bigger all over the world, also with spatial computing helping us, or let's say helping to onboard the masses.
We just crossed 40 subscribers mark yesterday. If you like what you're listening right now, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. It takes a second for you to do it. It costs nothing, and it means a world to us. It shows us that we are moving in the right direction and we produce the right content. So thank you. Enjoy.
We will most likely see a bit more of a shift, especially with Unreal Engine 5 doing a great work, allowing anyone to literally learn and use and build great immersive experiences. So just to say that, I think that's a big point on why the current state in the metaverse, a lot of platforms are still based on Unity.
I also think that the users, right? The users who decide what is better long term. And the only thing I'm not sure about is that right now the users, the young users, young type of users who are like 10 to 10 to 15 years old, the majority of Roblox, for example, player base, they're kind of used to like Unity style experience. So once they got into adults 5-10 years from now, how they will, maybe for them it will be more acceptable, the Unity rather than Unreal, even though for us Unreal is better, but they spend a lot of time right now in Unity spaces, or sort of Unity spaces. So it's really hard to, the future will tell. So so both right now it's a good alternative, 100%, and both have their use cases. And I'm curious, is anyone from the speaker would like to share a really good Unreal platform, like any name you would like to recommend? Because right now most of the platform discusses, all platform discusses kind of Unity side. So if you can share any interesting Unreal platforms, that'll be interesting to hear.
Of course, I have to like show my own name, right? Like if you give me the segue already, yeah. Like of course, like I work for BizTech, and we are an Unreal Engine 5 platform, and yeah, we basically, I think we solved a problem that has been named here, you know, like the per minute cost, you know, that is like basically closer to zero in Unity than if you actually use Unreal Engine 5. But you know, I can basically say like, hey, if you want to pay $1 for an hour of an experience, you know, per visitor, that is not much for the high ticket items. Companies, basically, you know, car companies and companies in high fashion, they actually explore this a lot more, and because nobody buys a Porsche in you know, in Unity, like that's very nice, you know, if you want to interact with with other people, you know, that, so basically the metaverse has another use there. But like if you want to go into like better marketing, etc., you know, these companies actually already explore this. And it's not as cost prohibitive as it has been like 10 years before. I think the real issue is there are not a lot of platforms out there that actually, you know, drive down the cost. So like I have heard like ridiculous numbers like $10 an hour, and then nobody goes into building metaverses then, because like it's just like cost prohibitive, right? So I think you know, seeing the trends that are there, just seeing that a lot more companies actually are willing to do the research and are just waiting for this like sweet spot of people actually wanting to go there and having to go there because a competitor actually went the Unreal 5 route. That is something that we will be looking at, because if you actually just imagine you're a car company and your competition does something that looks so amazing that you just cannot ignore it, right? And this is what we will see. Like eventually somebody will really go into Unreal 5 and then say, hey, we don't care about like how much this costs in the first year, and then everybody has to follow suit, and then it's gonna be like a landslide, because you cannot have like a low visual fidelity metaverse then, you know, as a competitor, because you will be seen as inferior. And like there are a lot of studies there, you know, that show, you know, like that, you know, basically, you know, the perception of competition, etc., you know, like that has always been there, like in other marketing campaigns, you know, you always have to follow suit, you know, keep up with the Joneses. And so I think there will be a split between like marketing in Unreal 5 and then basically casual hangouts and like gamification metaverses like in Unity. And we always have to think of the use case, like the use case for the brands, and not like, you know, which one is better per se, you know. But like if I want to show off like something in high fidelity, I cannot do it in Unity right now. But if I want to have like the gamified metaverse, like Andre said, like kids coming from Roblox, they're much more familiar with the environment. You can have it in both, so you don't have to go to Unreal then, right? Like so, it depends on what you want to do. I think the real issue is when you talk to CTOs and CMOs, and you ask them why they want to go the route, they always say this one thing: we want to be like at the cutting edge, we want to be at the forefront of this technology. And then you hear them want to go like in Roblox or in Unity. So there is a disconnect there for me, because like, what is it now? Like, do you want to be at the cutting edge? Do you actually want to put what you were telling me like into action? Or are you just saying that for marketing purposes, but then you don't do it? So you know, because we all know what's possible in Unreal 5, right? And then it's really there's a disconnect, and I think a lot of companies don't even have the people that understand the whole subject, right? So yeah, my 2 cents.
You raise a great point, and so when I ask which platforms you know about, and it's really hard to come up with Unreal Engine platform quickly. So there's 2 ways for that. But the main reason is probably marketing side. So there's not big marketing expenses coming from the Unreal platforms compared to Unity-like platforms. That's why when people think about the metaverse, they think about Unity side rather than Unreal. And if they think about Unreal, they think about really expensive side as well. So it's kind of bad PR for the Unreal, unfortunately. But you raise a great point. We have the same thing in B2B and B2C marketing, right? You don't market your B2B product to B2C. You don't market if you like to sell a Boeing, you don't go and market it on Facebook advertisements and something like that. You pick your audience, you pick your target market always. Same thing with metaverse platforms. It's the same concept, like in any marketing site, for example. So Unity is more B2C right now. Unreal is more B2B, I would say, and we'll see how the trends will go. Thank you to watching to the end. If you like more exclusive content, you like the memes, or you'd like to learn through the text, consider subscribing to our newsletter. Links in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and probably you might like this video.